On Christmas Day, Ethan deliberately put aside his work to stay home with me. I was busy in the kitchen, preparing his favorite dishes, feeling particularly happy, but when I carried the food out, I unexpectedly overheard him speaking in German on the phone. "Sweetheart, I can't make it to you today, but I'll rush over first thing tomorrow morning." The girl on the other end cooed in German, "Aren't you afraid she'll find out?" I heard Ethan reply with a hint of disdain. "Afraid of what? She's just a housewife who only knows how to do laundry and cook. She doesn't understand a word we're saying. Don't worry, once she gives birth, I'll bring the child and we'll be together." My hands trembled, and the plate fell to the ground with a sharp clatter. Ethan immediately hung up and rushed over to ask what was wrong. Fighting back tears, I shook my head and pretended everything was fine, saying I just felt a bit dizzy. Seeing this, he tenderly carried me back to the bedroom and stayed by my side all night, but I didn't sleep a wink, my hands shaking uncontrollably. The next morning, I quietly scheduled an abortion appointment. Ethan must have forgotten that I had studied abroad in Germany during college, so German was no challenge for me. Just as the confirmation text popped up, he woke up and, as usual, tried to plant a kiss on my face, which I dodged by turning away. He paused, noticed my lit phone screen on the nightstand, and frowned, saying, "You should look at your phone less, it's not good for the baby." I nodded with a bitter smile and closed the hospital appointment page. He didn't notice anything amiss, just glanced at his phone casually, the corners of his mouth curling slightly. Soon, he got dressed and said offhandedly, "Jessica, I have an important business dinner tonight, so don't wait up for me." With that, he turned and left. In the past, whenever he had a dinner, I'd wake up early to make him breakfast and repeatedly remind him not to drink too much. My heart always uneasy, but now, I just lay weakly in bed, his words from last night echoing in my mind. It turned out the happiness I thought I had was nothing but an elaborate lie, and the one who deceived me was the man who once vowed to love me forever. I couldn't let it go, so I went through Sophia's Weibo and sure enough, found plenty of photos of Ethan. Turns out, all those business trips he claimed to be on over the past 3 years were actually flights to Germany to be with her. In the comments section, there were several fan accounts with the same profile picture as Sophia. When I clicked into them, a few short videos on their homepages left me stunned. It was the first time I'd ever seen Ethan smile so happily. In the videos, he affectionately ruffled the hair of the girl in his arms and said something like, "We'll be together every year from now on." Just then, my phone buzzed twice, a text from Ethan, as usual reminding me to remember to eat. Before, messages like this would have felt sweet, but now they just felt ironic. He probably only remembered to send me a perfunctory text after finishing his intimate time with Sophia, realizing I was still at home carrying his child. Sure enough, not long after, Sophia updated her status. The man who claimed to be at a business dinner was now crouching under a Christmas tree, hanging colorful little ornaments, with ambiguous red marks on his neck. In the photo, he was saying tenderly that he wanted to give the girl a one-of-a-kind Christmas tree. Actually, the day before Christmas, I had also asked for a Christmas tree, but he coldly refused. "You're not a little girl anymore. Stop acting like one. If you have nothing better to do, go take some prenatal classes." I always thought he was just naturally cold, but the photo before me was like a knife, stabbing straight into my heart, making me realize he wasn't incapable of romance. He just never cared to put in the effort for me, but I still couldn't understand. If he didn't love me anymore, why keep up this charade? Waves of emotion surged, and my stomach began to ache terribly, clutching my belly. I kept apologizing silently to my unborn child. Now that I knew everything was wrong, how could I possibly let the mistake continue? After completing the hospital procedures, I lay calmly on the operating table, letting the cold liquid flow into my body through the pore, but my tears wouldn't stop, streaming down until I gradually lost consciousness. When I woke up again, the nurse was removing the needle. Seeing me sit up, she quickly supported me and said, "You young people always take your health so lightly. Last Christmas, I saw your husband accompany you for IVF, and last month, he was here with you for a prenatal checkup. I thought you'd finally gotten your wish, so why are you suddenly here for an abortion?" I froze, staring at her in disbelief, unable to speak. A younger nurse nearby gave her a look and awkwardly explained with a laugh, "She's getting old, her memory isn't great. She must have mistaken you for someone else." With that, she pulled her out of the room. Faintly, I could hear them arguing in the hallway. "Are you sure you didn't mix her up?" No, it was definitely that man. My whole body trembled. And I nearly dropped my phone. But Ethan and I had only decided to pursue IVF 3 months ago. How could it have been last Christmas? A terrible suspicion seized me, and I hurriedly opened Sophia's Weibo, scrolling back to last year's Christmas. Sure enough, her location that day was this very hospital. She had written, "I love babies, but my body won't allow it, so IVF is the only option. But Mr. Gu heard the doctor say it's too risky and won't let me take the chance." I don't know what to say to him. The comments were full of praise, calling Ethan a wonderful husband. As I read, I started laughing instead, cold tears sliding down my cheeks, each drop stinging. My mind flashed back to the day Ethan found out I was pregnant. He kissed my forehead over and over, saying he'd be the best father in the world when the baby came, that he'd stay with me happily forever, never apart. That usually quiet man spent the whole night dreaming of the future with me. It was the happiest day of my life, and I truly believed he'd walk with me for the rest of our days, but only now do I understand. His joy that day wasn't because we'd finally created a symbol of our love, it was because the test tube was successful. Sophia wouldn't have to go through the hardship of IVF again. I couldn't help but wonder, who was he thinking of when he made that forever vow? My phone suddenly vibrated. It was a voice message from Ethan. Suppressing my emotions, I tapped to listen. He said his business dinner ran late and he'd be back first thing in the morning. Faintly, a woman's coquettish voice could be heard in the background. Though soft, I recognized it instantly. It was Sophia. She was still playfully calling Ethan's name. Not long after, another photo of the two surfaced on Weibo. In it, Sophia sat on the couch like a little princess, while Ethan knelt on the floor, reverently kissing the top of her foot, his face softer than I'd ever seen. The caption read, "Punishment for misbehaving. CEO GU has to massage my feet." Ethan was the first to like it. I could no longer hold back my emotions and buried myself under the covers, sobbing uncontrollably. In my daze, my thoughts drifted back to my first Christmas with Ethan. That year. He finished work early and waited for me outside the airport. Snowflakes swirled in the air, yet he stood in the snow, eyes fixed on the exit, his gaze tender the moment he saw me. The instant I stepped out, he came forward to take my luggage, his expression resolute. Back then, I truly believed we'd grow old together, but all that peace shattered the moment Sophia appeared. Actually, Sophia was a student Ethan and I sponsored together before we got married. Back then, Ethan had even studied German, and he said he felt a sense of familiarity hearing me speak in German at the exchange event. It was our second Christmas together. After deciding to sponsor Sophia, we got married soon after, and from then on, every Christmas became a gathering of 3. Ethan always said the girl had no one to take care of her in the city, so he invited her over for every holiday. Later, he even reserved a room for her at home, and she became Ethan's little shadow. Ethan indulged her every whim, even sneaking her into the company's annual party behind my back. It wasn't until she was expelled from school for failing too many courses that I decided to stop sponsoring her. This led to a huge fight with Ethan, and in my anger, I fainted. When I woke up, he was by my side, apologizing non-stop. That was when I found out I was pregnant. Ethan later stopped sponsoring Sophia as well and even helped me quit my translation job at the company. I thought we would have arguments and conflicts, but I never imagined he would betray me. Wiping away my tears, I took off the ring from my ring finger and threw it into the trash without hesitation. "Ethan, since you've broken your promise, there's no need for me to keep waiting." After being discharged from the hospital, I returned home alone and lay in bed in a daze for a long time before slowly regaining my composure. I picked up my phone and called my supervisor. Linda, is the company still hiring translators?" There was a long silence on the other end before she awkwardly replied, "The translation position is now fully managed by MS. Ju. I'm not sure about the rest. I forced a smile and thanked her before hanging up, my mind blank. As soon as the screen darkened, Ethan pushed the door open, looking exhausted. He was still typing a WeChat message with his head down, a faint smile on his lips, but the moment he looked up and met my gaze, the smile vanished. He asked impatiently, "It's so late, why aren't you asleep yet?" I sat on the sofa across from him and spoke calmly. "The company's translation position has a new hire again. I heard her last name is Ju. Do I know her?" Ethan visibly flinched at this, touching his nose guiltily, but quickly regained his composure. "The students you recommended before weren't very capable, so I had my secretary hire someone named Ju, didn't I? I didn't look into the details. Anyway, Jessica, it's late. You and the baby should get some rest. I know I've been busy with work lately, but it's all for you and our child to have a better life, isn't it?" Suppressing the irony in my heart, I lay back down on the bed. Ethan immediately snuggled up to me, the familiar scent of his cologne making me nauseous. He then said, "Let's sleep early. I'm really exhausted today." Hearing this, my stomach churned violently. How laughable it was. He had just returned from Sophia's bed in the middle of the night, still carrying her fragrance, yet he could say such sanctimonious words to me with a straight face. After 8 years together, it was only now that I truly saw him for who he was. Ethan didn't notice my stiffness at all and tried to pull me into his arms on his own. I couldn't take it anymore and practically rushed to the bathroom, vomiting violently into the toilet. Only after my eyes turned red from retching did I barely manage to suppress the nausea. Ethan simply assumed it was normal morning sickness and, with a worried expression, patted my back. I directly avoided his touch. The air was thick with the scent he'd brought back, so I turned on the air purifier while whispering to the baby in my belly, "When you're born, I'll make sure to teach you well. No more tormenting your mom like this." I forced a weak smile and said nothing, perhaps because I was acting too unusual. Ethan finally didn't go out for social engagements the next day and stayed home to work, but the moment he got close, my body instinctively recoiled, and the nausea and vomiting grew worse. My complexion became increasingly pale. Ethan anxiously insisted on taking me to the hospital, but I shook my head coldly. "No need, I stopped caring for your hypocritical concern long ago." He froze for a few seconds, frowning as if about to say something, when suddenly his phone rang. A familiar voice speaking German came through. "Jing-chen Gij, want some excitement? I'm waiting for you in the car tilde." Ethan put away his phone and regained his composure as he looked at me. "Jessica, there's an emergency at the company. Will you be okay alone? Don't overthink it, I'll be back soon." I smiled faintly, my heart utterly cold. "It's fine, I trust you." Forcing a smile, I turned and walked back to the bedroom. Ethan hurriedly left, even forgetting his phone in his rush. I picked up his phone, the screen displaying an incoming call. No contact name. With a cold laugh, I answered. Sure enough, the receiver carried suggestive gasps and laughter. "Sophia cooed, didn't Sister Shu satisfy you?" After a pause, Ethan's low chuckle followed. "How could she compare to even 1,000th of you?" Their intimate words stabbed into my heart like knives. Expressionless, I forwarded the recording to my own phone and returned to the bedroom, pretending nothing had happened. Ethan returned as I was preparing for bed. He tried to take my hand, his scent laced with perfume. Disgusted, I pulled away. Ethan noticed my bare ring finger, his face instantly paling. "Jessica, where's the ring?" I gently rubbed the hand he had touched and answered nonchalantly. "Last time I got a manicure, it was in the way, so I took it off and forgot to put it back on. It's just a ring. You hardly ever wear yours either, don't you?" He was immediately speechless. When we got married, we didn't have a wedding ceremony or take wedding photos. This ring was the only thing. From the start, he refused to wear it, saying he was afraid of office gossip. Now I understand. He wasn't worried about me being talked about, he was just protecting his Sophia. Ethan stayed silent for a long while before murmuring, "It's my fault. From now on, I'll wear it all the time and never take it off without your permission." Okay. His rare gentleness now only made me feel sick. He even suggested making up for the wedding at the end of the month while the baby is still small, saying he'd announce my status at the company to stop me from overthinking. But as I looked at him, I felt no emotion. Only overwhelming bitterness. I saw right through his sudden tenderness. It was nothing but guilt after a stolen pleasure. The more I thought about it, the more it gnawed at me, and my frown deepened. Ethan, however, mistook my silence for being moved and pulled me into his arms without hesitation, as if to comfort me. Late at night, I drowsily heard him tiptoe out to the living room, peeking through the door crack. I caught him whispering into the phone, his tone exasperated. "I just need to keep her calm for now, she's still carrying our child. Don't be mad, okay, I'll come to you soon." Every word felt like a hammer to my chest, leaving me unsteady on my feet. So, this child had been nothing more than a pawn in his game all along. I numbly returned to bed and booked a flight to Germany for the end of the month on my phone. Ethan came back and gently touched my belly, his voice dripping with sweetness. "Jessica, something urgent came up at work. You and the baby stay home and wait for me." Okay, only after the door clicked shut did I slowly open my eyes. "Ethan, just you wait. Wait for the wedding surprise I've prepared for you." In the days that followed, Ethan continued leaving early and returning late. While Sophia's social media overflowed with their lovey-dovey moments, I quietly arranged everything, biding my time until the wedding day arrived, 2 days before the wedding. Sophia couldn't wait to show up at my door. The moment I opened it, I saw her looking smug as she barged in without hesitation, glancing around like she owned the place. Finally, she sneered. "Sister Shu, did you ever imagine this day would come when you kicked me out? How does it feel to be the other woman now?" I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. Enraged, her voice turned shrill. "Just wait. Not only will your man be mine, but your child will call me mom too. Everything you have will eventually belong to me." Suddenly, she grabbed my arm, her nails digging deep into my flesh. Instinctively, I tried to pull away, just as the door behind me opened and Ethan walked in. I dodged to the side, but he acted as if he saw nothing. Walking straight to Sophia, Ethan shielded Sophia behind him in one swift motion, his face cold as he glared at me, his tone full of accusation. "Jessica, how can you still be so unreasonable? Sophia has already fled abroad. And yet you still won't leave her alone." With that, he slammed the door shut, and the living room instantly fell into an eerie silence. His accusations echoed in my mind. I couldn't help but laugh. After all, I was the one who got hurt, I was the one who got pregnant. Yet in his eyes, the one who deserved the most sympathy was still Sophia. But once, I too had his favor. I still remember during our junior year, when my adoptive mother forced me to drop out of school to go back home so my younger brother could get a dowry. It was Ethan who stood in front of me and told me that as long as he was there, I had nothing to fear. It took him 2 years to help me completely break free from my adoptive mother, yet it only took him 2 months to turn around and love someone else. The happiness we promised each other had turned into bitter words, but I finally understood. The him now was no longer the Ethan who had nothing and whose eyes and heart were only filled with me, and I no longer needed his love. In 2 days, it would be the wedding. That day, Ethan came home unusually early, his expression calm, as if nothing had ever happened. "Jessica, stop staring at your phone. Come try on the ring." He handed me a ring box. I barely glanced at it, not even taking the ring out, and closed the box again. "It doesn't matter if it fits or not." Seeing my dismissive attitude, his expression darkened. "There's really nothing between me and Sophia. Can you stop being so hostile toward her? She's just a young girl." I noticed his irritation and pushed the ring box back toward him, casually pointing to the inscription inside. "Did you get the wrong one? This has Sophia's name engraved on it." My tone was calm, but Ethan's face froze instantly. He tried to explain, but I was too tired to listen. I turned and walked straight back to the bedroom, ignoring him. Ethan came back later with a look of regret and exhaustion. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, holding me so tightly it felt like he wanted to press me into his bones. He kept whispering apologies in my ear. "Jessica, I was wrong. Let's make this work, okay? Do you remember our wish when we graduated?" His voice echoed in my ears, but I couldn't hear any of it anymore. That year, we made a wish together under the Christmas tree, hoping to stay together year after year. But this year, he used the same promise to comfort another woman. "Ethan, how much longer do you plan to keep up this act?" I felt dazed. my vision blurring until I gradually slipped into a dream. On the day before the wedding, Ethan woke up early to make me porridge. The living room was filled with baby supplies. He brought the porridge to me, his eyes full of tenderness. "Eat some porridge, it's good for your stomach. I bought a lot of clothes for the baby. Take a look when you have time." I nodded, but my gaze remained fixed on my flat stomach. Ethan didn't notice, spending the whole day doting on me and daydreaming about our future child. By evening, a sudden storm rolled in, with thunder and lightning crashing outside. By evening, he became visibly restless, tossing and turning in bed while frequently glancing at his phone. Finally, the familiar ringtone sounded, and he could no longer sit still. Hastily grabbing his keys, he prepared to leave. "Jessica, I'll have the driver pick you up for tomorrow's wedding. There's an urgent matter at the company. I have to go deal with it." Without waiting for my response, he walked out the door without looking back. I picked up the luggage I had prepared long ago, hailed a taxi, and quietly left the place that was once called home. On the road, Ethan's car happened to pass by my taxi. Had he turned his head, he would have seen me standing in the rain with my luggage, but he didn't look back. Wiping the tears from the corner of my eye, I rolled up the car window. "To the airport, please, Ethan. I gave you countless chances along the way, but you ignored them every time. Now, it's time for a clean break." Completely over. 75 hours later, the plane landed, and I returned to the German school where I had once been an exchange student, this time as a visiting teacher. The school had already arranged everything for me, move-in ready. After switching to a new phone number and lying on the bed in the faculty apartment, I finally let out a sigh of relief. Calculating the timing, the surprise I had meticulously prepared should have already reached their hands by now. I opened my phone, and sure enough, the keyword "story CEO" was trending. Clicking in, I saw a video. In the scene, Ethan stood in the crowd wearing a black suit, gazing toward the wedding car. When the door opened, out stepped Sophia in a wedding dress. The dress that should have been mine, now draped over her. Ethan looked stunned. But before he could speak, the large screen at the venue suddenly began playing a slideshow, a video I had edited myself, a full 1,000 photos, all of him and Sophia together. The crowd erupted in murmurs, casting envious and puzzled glances at the pair. Amid the congratulatory cheers, Ethan turned deathly pale. By the time the video ended, netizens had already dug up Sophia's identity and past, exposing her shady history, and Ethan's reputation took a massive hit. I closed Weibo and checked the home surveillance. Just as expected, Ethan had discovered the wedding gift I left for him in the bridal suite, a miscarriage report and the divorce papers I'd signed long ago. Clutching the documents with white-knuckled force, his eyes reddened before he collapsed to the floor like a deflated balloon, calling my name over and over. Without hesitation, I shut off the feed and uninstalled the app. Returning to school, I quickly readjusted. Beyond attending classes, I began traveling to places I'd always wanted to visit but never had the chance. Looking back at my past self, someone who poured all her energy into Ethan, living like a resentful housewife, just as he'd said, a homemaker who only knew how to cook and clean, I realized I had once been that girl with dreams and passion, who had achieved things in fields she loved, but he never noticed. Now, without Ethan, I finally understand that only by learning to love myself first can life truly be complete. After gradually adapting to the work rhythm here, I ran into my senior from back then, Sai Ihan. Meeting an old acquaintance in a foreign land felt especially heartwarming, and we quickly became good friends. We often made plans to go rock climbing and skiing together, and whenever I was with him, I always felt particularly relaxed and at ease. Later, thanks to his recommendation, I joined an international company as a translator. When the company's projects got busy, even I, as a translator, had to travel around with the team. This time, the project liaison happened to be sent from the Nancheng branch. When I first saw him, I froze for a moment before finally recognizing him and greeting him with a smile. "Linda, long time no see." Linda also paused for a few seconds before happily pulling me to sit down. "Oh my, Jessica, I never expected to run into you here," she exclaimed, her face full of surprise. I smiled and briefly explained how I ended up at this company. After listening Linda's expression suddenly turned complicated, and she sighed, saying, "Leaving Story Company back then was actually the right move. The company today is nothing like it used to be." She then went on to talk about Ethan, saying he seemed like a completely different person after the wedding. First, he suddenly disappeared for a month, and when he returned, he threw himself into jewelry design, claiming he wanted to create a new brand named after his lover, Iron. Rumor had it that the company's shareholders were in an uproar, whispering that Mr. Gu must have been possessed by something. I listened quietly, feeling no ripple of emotion. After chatting for a bit, Linda got up and left. After a long day, with all the documents tidied up, I was ready to leave work. It was Christmas, and the streets were much livelier than usual. I walked home slowly, and just as I was about to open the door, I suddenly noticed a small box placed at the entrance. Puzzled, I heard a trembling voice call out from behind me, "Iron, I've finally found you." I turned around and saw Ethan, looking weary from his journey. He stood in the heavy snow, flakes clinging to his hair, yet he was drenched in sweat, panting heavily as he stared at me intently, as if afraid I might disappear again. Instinctively, I wanted to shut the door, but he was quicker, grabbing me and pulling me into a tight embrace, holding me as if he wanted to meld me into his very bones. "Iron, Iron." His voice trembled, choked with tears. "I was wrong, truly wrong. Don't punish me like this. Without you, I'm nothing. I can't go on living." His tears slid down onto my neck, and I turned my face away, filled with irritation. I couldn't understand it. He was the one who had done wrong, who had betrayed me. So why was he now acting so innocent and pained? Was he truly remorseful, or just unwilling to lose me? Did he only realize regret after losing something? Coldly, I said, "Let go." But Ethan didn't release me. Instead, he held me even tighter. Finally, I shouted, "Let me go." His body stiffened, and after a moment of hesitation, he reluctantly loosened his grip. He looked at me cautiously, his voice still shaking. "Jessica, I truly know I was wrong. I swear I'll never have any contact with Sophia again. I'll do whatever you ask, and we can even redo the wedding. Everything will be as you wish, okay? As for the child, I don't blame you, we're still young. We'll have other chances. Jian, come back with me." Listening to him, I only felt weariness. I took a step back, putting distance between us. "Ethan, did you see what I left for you? I've decided to divorce you." His face instantly turned deathly pale, his body swaying unsteadily as if he might collapse. With reddened eyes, he asked in disbelief, "What, divorce? Jian, don't joke about this. How could we possibly divorce? 8 years of feelings, how can they just disappear like this? Is it because you didn't like the wedding I prepared for you? My taste has never been as good as Jessica's. It's all my fault. When you come back, we'll redo everything according to your preferences." Jing Chen rambled on as if possessed. I couldn't help but interrupt him. Jing Chen, how dare you? As someone who cheated, talk to me about 8 years of feelings. Hearing this, Ethan's eyes flickered with panic. He stammered incoherently for a long time before explaining, "No, it's not like that. Jian, I was just momentarily led astray, but I've always loved you. I never imagined we'd separate. It shouldn't be like this. I thought after the wedding, we'd have a home and children, living happily ever after." "Ethan, is your idea of happiness repeated betrayals, watching me foolishly love you, suffering through pregnancy day and night without rest? Did that make you proud?" Jing Chen grew frantic at these words, his eyes turning bloodshot as if about to bleed. "I didn't. I know you've suffered. But if I don't handle company matters, how can I give you and our child a good future? Jessica, I've been in agony too, clenching my fists." I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh at Ethan's words. Everything had been laid bare, yet he still pretended ignorance, putting on this hypocritical act of devotion. How many of those so-called business engagements you keep mentioning were actually real? You and Sophia interacted daily on your couple's account for 3 whole years without missing a single day. You promised to spend every Christmas by my side, but in reality, all it took was Sophia calling, and you'd rushed to her overnight. Over those 3 years, you traveled to countless places with her and took countless photos. Yet when we got married, you couldn't even spare the time to take wedding photos with me. Last Christmas, You accompanied her for IVF but stopped because you couldn't bear to see her suffer. And what about me? What am I to you? A tool to bear your children, or an obstacle to your love? Ethan looked utterly shocked. I curved my lips into a smile. The IVF child is yours and Sophia's. Did you really think I didn't know? Gu Jing-chen. I'm not a fool. Jian Ju. Ethan's face grew paler, her lips trembling as she tried to explain but found no rebuttal. The snow fell heavier, settling on Ethan's head. Ethan, do you remember what you promised me on our first Christmas together? Ethan stared at me, his eyes hollow, as if lost in memory. I let out a soft laugh, knowing he'd long forgotten. On our first Christmas together. Ethan spent all his savings to book an entire couple's restaurant. I never believed in love that lasts a lifetime, but when he appeared holding flowers, I truly began to fantasize about growing old together. Ethan had always been an unyielding straight man, and while I cherished the unique sense of security he gave me, I never imagined I would marry him. But that day, he knelt before me with utmost sincerity and said, "Ian, please believe me. As long as I live, I will love only you. If my heart ever changes, may the heavens strike me down." 8 years have passed, and he's still alive, but he long ago forgot those words. Ethan raised his eyes, a flicker of regret flashing in them. I suddenly remembered something and sighed in relief. Thankfully, you insisted on not having a wedding back then. Now, apart from you and Sophia, no one knows about our relationship. Otherwise, it would really be troublesome. Ethan looked at me in disbelief. As if he couldn't believe I would say such a thing. Jian, how could you think that way? I refused the wedding back then only because the company was in its early stages and too busy. Now I have the means to give it to you. Come back with me now, and I'll arrange the wedding immediately. It's just a wedding. You can have as many as you want. I impatiently tried to push him away to go inside, but Ethan immediately noticed and tightly grabbed my arm. Jian, come back. You're unfamiliar with this place. If you return, I'll arrange everything for you, whatever you want. I almost laughed at the absurdity, my expression turning mocking. Unfamiliar? Gu Jing-chen. Have you forgotten I spent 3 whole years in Germany during university? Did you really think I wouldn't understand the conversation between you and Sophia on Christmas Day? Hearing this, Ethan's pupils constricted, his face filled with shock. I forgot. I didn't mean it. Those words were all lies. You're pregnant, and I was afraid she'd run to you and spout nonsense. I impatiently shook off his hand. If everything is a lie, then what's real? Your fake love. Ethan was left speechless by my question, frozen in place. I seized the chance to leave. Ethan, however, said in a low voice, "But Jian, we've been together for so long. You've even carried my child. Who else would want you besides me?" My hand on the doorknob paused as I looked at the face I had loved for 8 years. Now only feeling estrangement, Ethan, seeing me turn back, a glimmer of hope rising in his eyes, said gently, "Be obedient, and we'll be fine. I won't abandon you." He smiled warmly, but a chill ran through my heart. I couldn't reconcile him with the person he once was, suppressing my disgust. I wanted to tear off his mask, but suddenly, a male voice sounded behind me. "What business do you have with my girlfriend?" 10. I turned to see Sim-han locking eyes with me. He strode forward, shielding me behind him. "I've already called the police. Jian is with me. Besides, she's an independent and outstanding woman. She'll be fine without anyone." Ethan's face darkened as he glared at Daniel, as if trying to bore a hole through him. "I'm Jian's husband. Who the hell are you? How dare you call her your girlfriend?" Sim-han's aura turned icy, his tone growing darker. "Husband, no problem. I've already found a divorce lawyer for Jian. What you've done should be enough for 10 divorces." Ethan, hearing this, veins bulged on his forehead as he clenched his fists, ready to lunge at Sim-han. But before he could get close, the arriving police restrained him and took him to the station. Daniel gave me a reassuring smile and followed to handle the matter before returning. I sat on the swing outside the door, swaying back and forth, the ember at my fingertips flickering, my phone vibrating incessantly. I opened it and saw a text from an unfamiliar domestic number. "Jessica, do you think you've won? I'm pregnant, and it's Jing-chen's." I scoffed and turned off my phone, thinking how pitifully foolish she was, throwing away everything for a man so utterly false. I took out a small red box from my pocket and opened it. Sure enough, it was that ring, a plain white band, with only rough engravings on the inside. Ethan's company had just started back then, and we were both penniless. Barely scraping together 2,000 yuan. But that Christmas was the happiest day of my life. Ethan spent half a month handcrafting this silver ring. The workmanship was visibly crude, with our initials clumsily carved inside, but I adored it. Even later, when he proposed with a custom-made, expensive diamond ring, I still felt it couldn't compare to this simple band. When I planned to leave, I threw it in the trash. I don't know how Ethan retrieved it, but seeing it now, I began to wonder, how could I have entrusted my entire life to him over just a ring? The snow gradually stopped. Sai-han handed me a bottle of milk and sat on the other swing. "Thank you," I said. Sai-han joked with a smile. "If anything, I'm the one taking advantage, claiming you're my girlfriend." I shook my head and laughed lightly. Sai-han said he called me his girlfriend to help drive Jiu Ying away. Chen Ku mentioned that my request for him to find me a lawyer was genuine. Now, I could no longer accept that I was still Ethan's wife. With a lawyer secured, the divorce proceedings went smoothly. Ethan hadn't appeared for a long time due to Sophia's pregnancy. It wasn't until I returned to China to finalize the divorce that the long-absent Ethan finally reappeared. In front of the Civil Affairs Bureau, Ethan looked utterly exhausted. In just a month, he seemed to have aged 10 years. "Jian, can you give me a little more time? I'll sort everything out soon," Ethan pleaded desperately as he looked at me. I brushed past him coldly, my tone indifferent. "Don't make me hate you too much." Ethan turned pale, then finally gave a bitter smile. When I stepped out again, Sophia was already waiting at the door. "Sister Shu, when Jing Chen and I have our baby, you must come. After all, if it weren't for you letting Jing Chen go, the baby wouldn't have a father." Sophia smirked triumphantly, as if she had achieved some great victory. Ethan snapped irritably. "Didn't I tell you to stay at home quietly? What's the matter? You're already divorced. Why do you still care so much about him?" Sophia darkened her expression, ready to argue with him. I couldn't be bothered to watch their drama. Seeing Daniel drive up, I prepared to leave. "Jian," Ethan called out hesitantly. Behind me, Sophia's accusatory voice continued. Suddenly, a scream rang out. I stopped in my tracks and saw Sophia, who had been standing on the steps, somehow tumble down. Blood gushed from beneath her as she lay pale-faced, screaming for help. Ethan seemed to snap out of it and rushed over. The scene quickly descended into chaos. A tall figure strode over, his large hand guiding me firmly into the car. It wasn't until the window rolled up that I finally came back to my senses. Shin-chan didn't say anything, just silently paid attention to my emotions. The moment I returned to Germany, it felt like a weight had suddenly lifted from my heart, and I breathed a huge sigh of relief. Life seemed to finally be back on track, just when I thought Jiu Ying Chen and I would never cross paths again. Linda suddenly sent me 2 videos. In one video, Sophia was sitting in a pool of blood, glaring at me with hatred. In the other, Sophia, no longer the smug figure she once was, lay disheveled at the entrance of the story hall, continuously screaming Ethan's name. She demanded he take responsibility, or else she would sue both me and Jiu Ying Chen. The videos spread quickly, and opinions online were divided. Some even began digging into my identity. As I frowned in frustration, Daniel walked over and wordlessly took my phone. "Starting tomorrow, you're on leave, we're going hiking." Before I could respond, Daniel had everything prepared. When we reached the mountaintop together and saw the vast snowy peaks before us, I felt a sudden sense of release. Love isn't wrong. It's the disloyal who are at fault. 12. By the time I returned to the company, the storm had already subsided. My landlord called to say someone had been sitting outside my door for 3 days. I rushed back and saw Ethan slumped dejectedly at the entrance, a small mountain of cigarette butts piled on the ground. When he noticed me, he stood up awkwardly. "Jian." I couldn't help but frown. "What do you want? The whole thing with Sophia didn't affect you. I never expected her to act like a shrew." "Don't worry, I've dealt with her. She won't bother you again." Ethan spoke urgently. "But wasn't all of this your doing? If it weren't for you, none of this would have happened." I cut him off and shut the door in his face. After that day, Ethan began to appear frequently near my home, every day after work. Inexplicable items would appear at my doorstep, sometimes flowers, sometimes handmade trinkets, all of which I threw into the trash without exception. Christmas came again, and Saya-chen invited me to dinner. After getting ready, I stepped out, standing at the street corner. I didn't wait for Sai-ihan but instead encountered Sophia. There weren't many pedestrians on the street, and the shrill sound of a horn pierced the air. Before I could react, I saw the frenzied Sophia driving a car straight toward me. "Jessica, die!" she screamed. The headlights were blinding. In the chaos, a figure pushed me aside, a sea of crimson filled my vision, and I gradually lost consciousness. When I woke up again, I was lying in a hospital bed with Saya-chen by my side. As soon as I came to, I urgently called for a doctor. Only after confirming I was unharmed did he finally relax. After the doctor left, he looked at me hesitantly, as if wanting to say something. "How are they?" I asked calmly. Daniel paused before replying. "Ethan died on the spot. The woman didn't make it." I stayed silent, fragments of memories faintly surfacing in my mind. "I'm sorry," Ethan murmured before closing his eyes for the last time. This ending seemed destined from the start. 8 years ago, he was indifferent to the weather. 8 years later, he finally paid the price for his mistakes. On the day I was discharged from the hospital and returned home, Daniel mysteriously covered my eyes. "What are you doing?" I nervously grabbed his arm, surprised. As he spoke, he lowered his hand and smiled at me, but I was left speechless by the sight before me. The living room was filled with red roses, and in the center stood a Christmas tree as tall as a person, adorned with gift boxes. I turned around, and Daniel was already kneeling on one knee in front of me. He held my hand and reverently kissed it, saying, "Jiayan, from now on, let me love you, okay?" My eyes welled up, and without hesitation, I nodded. "Okay." That Christmas marked the beginning of a new chapter in my life. Good night. That concludes the first story. Stay tuned, as the next one is even more exciting. I am the underground king. Victor, my lover, who appears to be devoted in public, usually massages my feet and fondles my chest, treating me like a mother and demanding I bear him 10 children. But when I was covered in blood, beaten like a ragged sandbag, with amniotic fluid and blood dripping to the ground, he didn't recognize me. Instead, he turned to the woman beside him, Lola, whispering sweet nothings. "Using a pregnant woman as a punching bag is fun," he said. "Beat her to death. My love, I'll take care of everything." That's when I realized he had a mistress. With those words, he snatched the boxing gloves and delivered a brutal punch to my swollen belly, his voice icy and disdainful. "Don't worry, when you die, we'll notify your husband to collect your body." My blurred vision fixed on the man before me, feeling both familiar and strange. Just last night, this man in a tailored suit was kissing and caressing my feet, murmuring sweetly, "I love you, my wife." Yet today, he was coldly determined to take my life. The pain was unbearable. My hands, suspended in the air, felt as if their blood flow had been severed. My face was covered in smoke and blood, and the agony forced me to clench my teeth. My voice too weak to scream. Is this pregnant woman about to give birth? Beaten like this, it's her fault for provoking Mrs. Wen, who brought her husband along. People in the gym shook their heads one by one, their eyes filled with indescribable pity. No one knew that the man who had just been eager to beat me to death with boxing gloves was my own husband. I had only come to deliver a seal to Victor, but accidentally stumbled upon him secretly hosting a banquet for his mistress. The moment I saw Victor, I thought he would surely recognize me and save me from Lola's hands, but he merely glanced at me before turning away, muttering just one sentence. "Ate too much at lunch, need to exercise." His belly was so large, it must have felt great to punch, right? So, without even looking at me, he picked up the boxing gloves and joined in, punching me again and again. The strong metallic scent of blood from my mouth and lower body seemed to act like a stimulant, making them hit even more eagerly, their eyes gleaming with bloodlust. Half dead, I hung in mid-air, swaying like a broken doll, a pool of bright red blood beneath me, gritting my teeth. I mustered all my strength to let out a hoarse cry. "Lu Zhen, stop!" His eyes sharpened, and his punching motion halted. For a moment, my heart stirred. I thought he had recognized me. And an overwhelming bitterness surged within me. The next second, he lifted his leg and viciously kicked my belly, sneering in disgust. Even in this pathetic state, you still try to seduce me. Disgusting. Keep hitting her. Countless punches and kicks, along with his incarnations, rained down on me. My body ached as if it had been run over by tires 1,000 times. His ferocious, merciless expression sent chills down my spine. I had been the treasure he once cradled so carefully in his hands. And the child in my womb was the jewel he had prayed for day and night. I had stood by him as he rose from a street thug to where he was today, 5 years of love, legally and rightfully bound. How had I become someone seducing him, deserving of such brutal beatings? The pain in my lower body felt like it was tearing me apart. Watching Victor and Lola leave me with affectionate smiles, my breathing weakened as I gradually sank into darkness. The gym staff, afraid of actually causing a death with the police coming and going endlessly, had no choice but to call an ambulance for me. During this time, they kept asking who my husband was. I opened my mouth but couldn't utter the name of the man who had just walked away holding Lola's hand. Just this morning, Victor had told me before leaving that he had a contract to sign at a high-end club, then softened his expression to kiss the corner of my lips, saying he'd come back later to have dinner with me. Such social engagements were common for him, so I didn't think much of it, until I turned around and noticed his seal left in the room, prompting me to rush out in a frenzy to deliver it. When the car stopped in front of the gym, I felt a little puzzled, but in my hurry to deliver the seal, I didn't dwell on it and charged inside. A woman named Lola grabbed me without a word and hoisted me up. I struggled violently with my hands, shouting that I was Lu Zhenting's wife. But Lola and the people behind her only laughed scornfully. Victor's first wife is called Emily, and the second wife, Wen Tai, is standing right in front of you. Chapter 2. Who the hell are you? Don't tell me you're the first wife, yet another delusional woman obsessed with my husband. If you like him so much, let him personally send you off. Lola gripped my chin, smirking maliciously. As soon as she finished speaking, waves of mocking laughter erupted around the room. It was only then that I realized, every night Victor tricked me into signing contracts. He was entangled in bed with this woman named Lola, but I couldn't believe it. The husband I remembered as loving me deeply was just an illusion. He had spent hundreds of millions to light up the city's fireworks just to make me smile. Last year, he even gifted me an island for my birthday, saying it was for me to play with. This year, to celebrate my pregnancy, he bought 2 buildings overnight, claiming they were for our child's future allowance. He even shielded me without hesitation during a car accident, with so much evidence of his love right before my eyes. How could he possibly betray me behind my back? I clenched my teeth and shook my head repeatedly, but all my certainty crumbled the moment I saw him intimately wrap his arm around Lola's slender waist. Honey, I want this pregnant woman as a punching bag for practice. All right, anything for you, as long as you're happy. Victor affectionately ruffled her hair, his eyes twinkling like a sky full of stars. Through my damp bangs, I felt the blood in my body turn cold inch by inch. So Lola hadn't lied. She was also Victor's wife. Then, Victor appeared wearing boxing gloves. I clung to a faint hope that he would notice me. If he just glanced back, he'd see that the punching bag hanging there was the woman he once cherished. But his gaze was fixed solely on the warmth beside him, like an overinflated balloon. I was beaten down blow by blow, blooded and gasping in pain, yet all I could see was the memory of him pressing his ear to my belly, listening to our baby's heartbeat. Darling, I hope it's a girl who looks like you. I'll make her the most unique little princess. Only now did I understand. His uniqueness was nothing but lies. Consciousness gradually faded, every inch of my body ached, and I felt as though I were floating on a swaying boat. Frantic shouts echoed in my ears. Madam, hold on. The baby still has a heartbeat. Hearing those last words, I struggled to open my eyes. The emergency doctor was a young girl. Terrified at the sight of my heavily pregnant belly covered in blood, she could only keep repeating, Madam, hold on, we'll reach the hospital once we get through the Liu family's banquet. Hold on. I fixed my gaze on the open-air banquet ahead. Lola, dressed in red, was tightly embraced by Victor, their eyes brimming with unconcealed tenderness. Tears rolled down her cheeks one by one. I closed my eyes briefly, then grabbed the doctor's wrist and rasped, "Save my child." No matter what, the next second, a drunken commotion erupted at the banquet, blocking the road ahead. The ambulance couldn't move, and the blood beneath me gushed out as if from a ruptured dam. The frantic doctor jumped out and screamed at the crowd, "A life is at stake, move aside." But the scene was filled with cheers celebrating the 5th wedding anniversary of Mr. Liu and Wen Tai. Every word struck me like thunder. No wonder he never celebrated our anniversary. This day was reserved for Lola. How laughable that I'd been kept in the dark for 5 years, believing his excuse about needing to keep a low profile as a gang leader. No, it was simply that I wasn't worthy. My eyelids drooped as my breath grew faint. The young doctor was crying in desperation, watching me drenched in blood, about to die on the road. She borrowed an electric scooter from a kind stranger and rushed me away. The distance was so close that I even heard Wen Susu's questioning voice, "Husband, what's that on the scooter? It's disgusting. Just a dead pig. Don't look too closely, it'll dirty your eyes." Victor's voice was gentle, exactly the same tone he'd used years ago when proposing to me. Back then, he'd said, "Emily, I love you, marry me, and I'll take care of you for the rest of my life." Only now did I realize that Victor's idea of taking care was a deadly scheme. By the time the scooter rushed into the hospital, I had nearly bled out. As my breathing stopped, the doctors charged into the operating room with bags of Rh-negative blood. "How much more blood do we need?" 1,600 milliliters. "The hospital blood bank just had enough," a nurse answered while wiping sweat from her brow. The next second, the operating room door was slammed open, and a group of men in black swarmed in, pressing their pistols heavily against the doctor's forehead. Victor walked in from behind the door, his brow furrowed deeply, his expression urgent. "All the O-type blood must be sent to the operating room across the hall. No one can take the blood meant for my wife." Blood-stained hands tried to grab his sleeve to tell him that his wife was right in front of him. But clearly, this time, the wife he spoke of wasn't me. It was someone else, Lola. The doctors exchanged glances, and one of the nurses even spoke up to remind him that the lady only had a small cut on her finger and didn't need a blood transfusion. He refused to listen, only brandishing his gun to hurry them along, thinking of the child in my womb and the pain in His Highness's heart. I struggled to call out, "It's me." He backhanded me with a slap so hard it sent me sprawling, his eyes dark and cruel. "Shut up, if you keep talking, I'll use you as a live blood bag for my wife." After hitting me, he glanced at his hand, now stained with blood, in disgust, sneered coldly, and walked out with the blood bags. I lay there, clutching my face in a daze, feeling as though my entire body had already been torn apart. 3 years ago. It was he who spent $3 million to secure a bloodline for me in the hospital. Now, it was he who took all my life-saving blood at gunpoint. The same person, the same act. Only the one he was protecting had changed to Lola. The doctors were too terrified to breathe, yet they couldn't just let me die. Just then, a young nurse rushed in, dragging a volunteer behind her, gasping for breath. She stammered, "We found Han, his O-type." The doctors collectively sighed in relief and hurried to draw and transfuse the blood for me. As the fresh blood entered my body, my deathly pale complexion finally began to improve. Just as the doctors were preparing to induce labor, the door was slammed open again. Lu Zhenting gave me an icy glance. As if looking at a corpse. "I want this pregnant woman's placenta. My wife has heart pain. It'll be good for her." My vision blurred as I stared at him, my lips trembling uncontrollably. Feeling like nothing more than a joke, after a long pause, mustering all my strength, I weakly pointed at the door and squeezed out one word, "Leave." He looked at me with disgust, kicked the operating table, sending both the bed and me crashing into the opposite wall. I fell to the ground, spitting out a mouthful of blood. He didn't even glance at me, only spat out a vicious curse. "Worthless trash, it's an honor for my wife to eat your placenta." The doctor trembled in fear, covering his head, not daring to say a word. "What are you all waiting for? If anything happens to my wife, none of you will live." Victor glanced at the operating room across the way, frantic with anxiety. A doctor, seeing me collapsed in a pool of blood and taking pity, mustered his courage and said, "Sir, stop the nonsense and go get the placenta. One more word, and I'll be collecting your corpse." Victor's eyes burned with fury as he aimed a pitch-black pistol directly at the doctor. Even though the doctors knew that forcing the extraction of the placenta from the infant would only end one way, death, no one dared to speak in the face of life and death. The operating room door slowly closed, and in my ears echoed his tender coaxing to Lola through the intercom. "Darling, don't worry. The freshly delivered placenta is highly nourishing. It'll definitely cure your chronic heart pain. I'll be right there. I love you." Each word struck like a hammer to the heart. The memories of our past affection now felt like a raging fire, turning to ashes inch by inch. I stared fixedly at his retreating figure, feeling as though a bloody blade was carving into my heart again and again, using his own son's life to nourish his mistress. Victor truly knows the meaning of devotion. The doctor's anesthetic took effect quickly. Moments later, I blacked out. In my unconscious state, I faintly heard a whimpering cry, as if saying, "Mommy, it hurts." Tears streamed silently from the corners of my eyes. I wanted to reach out, to hold him, but a thick fog clouded my vision, and I could see nothing. Perhaps by divine mercy, I was granted one last glimpse of my child. As he was taken out, my eyes fluttered open. Chapter 4. The doctor, seeing my pitiable state, brought the tiny, blooded child to me. Phoo, the child was forced. He isn't breathing. Looking at his lifeless form, it felt as though my organs were being twisted in agony. I tried to lift a hand to touch his soft, delicate body, but my broken arms wouldn't obey. I had imagined countless times what name I'd give him, what toys I'd prepare, when he'd first call me mommy, but of all those scenarios, never once did I imagine him leaving like this. Ordered by his own father to be cut out as medicine for a mistress, he hadn't even had the chance to open his eyes and see this world. I watched helplessly as he was carried away, my voice reduced to muffled sobs. Just then, the surgeon beside me was about to stitch my wound when another doctor rushed in and stopped him. "Don't stitch her up. This woman might need another cut." The other doctors widened their eyes in shock. "Another cut, and she'll die." Span. A cold voice came from the corridor. "Dying for Lola is a blessing for him and his mother. Hua, let me remind you, if you hadn't delayed for so long and compromised the placenta's efficacy, would Lola have suffered a heart palpitation attack?" "Enough talk. Hurry up and replace the core," the attending physician whispered hesitantly. "Director Liu, there are no new donors available at the hospital now. We've taken his heart." Before he could finish, Victor impatiently cut him off. "If there's no donor heart, give him an artificial one. I'll cover the cost. If he doesn't survive, that's just his bad luck." His gaze flicked to my tear-streaked, blooded face, and he covered his nose in disgust, taking a step back. A nurse beside me kindly brushed my sweat-drenched hair behind my ear, revealing half of my face. Just as he turned away to answer his phone, "Hello, Lola, I'm arranging a new donor for you. Be good and wait for me." But his assistant, trailing behind him, widened his eyes at the sight of my partially exposed face. Trembling, he turned to Victor, his voice choked. "Director Liu, your wife." His throat seemed to seize, and he pointed at me, stammering incoherently. Victor hung up the phone and snapped, "Shut up. You handle things here. I'm going to pick up Lola." The assistant cast one last fearful glance at me, too shaken to speak. As the sound of the man's footsteps faded into the distance, I shed my final tear, when the doctor placed the artificial heart into my body. My own heart was simultaneously placed into Lola's body. Just 2 steps away lay Victor's agonized groans, the palms of the 2 ladies stained with blood. I forced my eyes open, staring fixedly at Victor, feigning concern. "Darling, this heart is a perfect match for you. You'll be fine. Don't worry about the child. Once the baby in your belly is born, they'll call you Mom too." Lola responded verbally, but her eyes locked onto mine, a smug, barely suppressed grin on her face, and she had every right to laugh, because I, and my child were all destroyed by Victor, one dead, one injured, And that child had taken its last breath right under his watch. I struggled to breathe, the pain like a long needle piercing my lifeless brocade. I desperately wanted to know what expression Lu Junting would wear when he realized he had killed the child he had longed for. Would he still be able to maintain that tender, affectionate facade? The thought of that scene made me laugh uncontrollably. Lu Junting's face darkened, his eyes practically devouring me with rage. Just as he was about to unleash a torrent of curses, the butler stumbled through the door, his face pale with panic. "Sir, madam, she's gone." Victor froze. The next second, he shoved Lola's hand aside and sprang to his feet. "Where is Emily?" His voice, upon closer listening, carried a barely perceptible tremor. The butler wiped the sweat from his brow. "Madam said she was bringing you documents this morning, but she never returned." In an instant, Victor seemed to think of something, his body trembling slightly. A few seconds later, he struggled to steady his voice and said, "Find her, go find her now." The butler acknowledged and was about to turn away when he caught sight of me lying on the operating table and exclaimed, "Madam." Victor frowned and retorted, "What madam? I wasn't talking about Lola, it's Emily." The butler trembled as he pointed behind him and whispered, "Sir, that is Madame Fu." Chapter 5. Lu Junting instinctively turned around, his gaze meeting mine directly, and he scoffed, "What nonsense are you talking? How could he be Emily?" The butler, sweating anxiously, quickly explained, "Sir, he is indeed the madam. Look if you don't believe me." As he spoke, he walked over and gently wiped the blood from my face with his sleeve, revealing my true features. Suddenly, a cacophony of heavy objects crashing to the ground echoed through the operating room. How laughable! He claimed to love me so much, yet treated me like a stranger right under his nose, while his assistant and butler recognized me at a glance. How ironic! Victor staggered back several steps, taking a long moment before uttering in a dreamlike voice, "How is this possible?" His hands trembled uncontrollably, his lips parting and closing as if struggling to say my name. Even Lola, sensing the tension, tugged lightly at his sleeve, but he ignored her completely. The next second, he stumbled toward me, his voice hoarse with sobs. "Emily, it's you, it's really you. Why didn't you tell me earlier?" He tried to grab my hand, but I shoved him away forcefully, his breath hitched, his eyes reddening with regret. Yet, to me, it all seemed like a farce. I looked at him, my voice still gentle despite its hoarseness. "I did, but every time, you told me to shut up." Victor's facial muscles twitched faintly. "I was too anxious at the time, and my eyesight was poor, which is why I didn't recognize you." He forced an excuse for himself, but his glasses drooped guiltily. "It's my fault, covered in blood and filth. I looked like a dead pig, dirtying your eyes." "It's normal you didn't recognize me." I took a deep breath and continued, his face flushed crimson, fists clenched tightly as he lunged forward. "I'm sorry, I said the wrong thing. Don't worry. As long as I'm here, you'll be fine." The smile on my lips grew colder. "Don't worry, even if something happens to me, I won't blame you. After all, it's just my bad luck. Without me, you can openly celebrate your anniversary with your beloved missus." When, as soon as the words fell, Victor abruptly slapped himself hard across the face, so forcefully that the corner of his mouth split. I deserved to die for spouting nonsense. "Honey, don't be angry." I let out a cold laugh, my voice dripping with disgust. "Get lost. Don't call me honey. Hearing those words from you makes me sick." Victor was utterly wounded by the icy chill in my eyes, his own glistening with moisture. In the past, no matter what mistake he made, as long as he showed even half a hint of remorse, I would forgive him. But this time, even if he gouged out his own eyes in front of me, I wouldn't soften even a little. With a thud, he dropped to his knees, his face contorted in agony. Ignoring my struggles, he gripped my hands tightly. "Emily, I was wrong. Can you forgive me? I swear I'll break it off with her immediately." But it was too late, far too late. I suddenly laughed. "Go ask the child you ordered to be cut open and left to die. Can they forgive you?" Victor froze, his face paler than a corpse. Suddenly, he remembered that blooded infant, its eyes still unopened, as he had roughly torn away the amniotic sac, leaving streaks of blood. The poor thing hadn't even had the chance to cry before slipping away silently, His half-kneeling body swayed before collapsing, his tall frame hitting the cold, hard ground with a dull thud. In that moment, he wished he could die on the spot. That was the child he had longed for day and night, his Chingu. He had yearned for him for so long, yet the child had died by his own hands. Regret and overwhelming fear surged over him like a tidal wave, drowning him. He sobbed, clutching his head, pounding his thin lips with his fists until they nearly bled, muttering incessantly, "My child, I've wronged you." As tears fell one after another, the dozen or so people present were dead silent, their shallow breaths the only sound. As I watched Victor's tears, all I felt was scorn. Those were crocodile tears, utterly insincere. Chapter 6. His eyes bloodshot, he stared at me, begging for forgiveness while confessing, "Wife, give me one more chance, I'll treat you twice as well from now on. Please forgive me this once." In the past, that word wife had been my deepest comfort. But after hearing him call Lola wife, I felt as if every drop of blood in my body wanted to vomit out. I let out a weak laugh, pointing at my freshly stitched, blood-streaked chest, and asked word by word, "You killed my child, stole my heart. How can I forgive you? Victor, you're the most disgusting person. Let's get a divorce." "No, Emily, I didn't know it was you. It was all a misunderstanding. Please give me another chance." Tears streaked his face as he staggered toward me, grabbing my hand and slapping himself hard, over and over, with the last of my strength. I shoved him away. "Get out, don't dirty my hands." His body stiffened, and his grip on my hand slackened, falling limp. I didn't even glance at him, turning instead to glare coldly at Lola, who was cowering in the corner. The smugness on her face had vanished, replaced by sheer panic. "You might not know this, but your missus, when recognized me long ago." As soon as these words were spoken, Victor's expression instantly changed, his eyes flashing with a mix of complex emotions, sorrow, pain, and fury. Clenching his teeth, he stood up and lunged forward, slapping Lola hard across the face before grabbing her hair, his eyes blazing with rage as he accused her. "It's all because of this bitch's instigation. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have made such a mistake. It's all your fault. I'll kill you, pay with your life for my son." With that, he began kicking and punching the woman mercilessly. Soon, the operating room was filled with her agonized screams, "Husband, stop, it's me. Lola, you said you loved only me. Have you forgotten?" The woman's screams mixed with hysterical sobs echoed through the deathly silent operating room. With every word she uttered, Victor's face grew paler, and the force of his kicks intensified. The next moment, he turned and snatched a pistol from a bodyguard, pressing it directly against Lola's forehead. The room collectively gasped. Lola, lying in a pool of blood, could no longer speak coherently, only whimpering intermittently. "I won't dare anymore, never again." Her blooded hand reached out to clutch Victor's leg, but he kicked her away with a low growl. The scene was eerily familiar, just like mine that day at the gym. I watched with a faint smile as Lola's body gradually stained red with blood, a surge of satisfaction flickering in my heart. Not enough, this was still far from enough. From that day on, Victor had gone mad, scouring the world for a matching heart for me. He even mentioned taking back the heart he'd given to Lola. When I tentatively asked, "Wouldn't that mean I'd die?" he replied coldly, "Exactly. Then she can rightfully become your first wife." Upon hearing this, he immediately knelt down, raised his hand, and swore, "Emily, my feelings for him were just a fleeting novelty, like a toy. A man's words are a devil's lies. If it were just a fleeting novelty, how could it have dragged on for 5 years? You can't even lie convincingly. I didn't expose him, but I didn't give him a pleasant look either. Did I? Do you really have the heart?" Seeing my cold expression and realizing I wasn't joking, his eyes reddened as he knelt and declared, "Emily, you're the only one I truly love. Believe me, he's just the sister of one of my subordinates. That man once saved my life, and I promised to take good care of his sister. So I ended up taking care of her in bed behind your back." I nodded, a mocking smile curling at my lips. I dared not believe him again. The last time I trusted him, I not only lost my child's life but nearly died myself. This time, I trust only myself. After a few days of recovery, when my body was strong enough for the second surgery, Both Lola and I were wheeled into the operating room. Shedding his usual docility around Victor, he bared his teeth at me and sneered, "Emily, don't get too smug. He promised to find me another heart. He'll never be yours alone." See, in front of me, he raged at Lola, wishing he could end her life with his own hands, yet behind my back. He sought out renowned doctors and hunted for a new heart for her. Chapter 7. So deep and devoted, only I and the dead child seemed to be part of their twisted game. Lying on the operating table, I laughed until tears streamed down my face. Who cares? Victor is already tainted. And the best end for a tainted man is destruction. Lola's arrogant voice continued, but I closed my eyes, shutting it all out. Soon enough, they would pay for what they did to my child. The first thing I did after recovering from the heart transplant surgery was hold a grand funeral for my child. I burned all the toys, clothes, rocking horses, and drawing boards from the nursery at his gravesite. I wanted him to know, even in the afterlife, that his mother loved him more than her own life. Victor's brothers and friends, seeing me cry my heart out, all urged me to restrain my grief. Even Margaret, with reddened eyes, comforted me. "Child, you're still young. Take care of yourself. You can have as many children as you want in the future." I wiped my tears and looked up, scrutinizing each of them carefully. Mockery surged in my heart. These were the same people who had attended Lola's banquet. They had known the truth all along, yet they helped Victor, treating me like a fool. Now they put on this hypocritical act. How revolting! Victor, seeing my devastation, was at a loss and softened his voice to coax me. "Darling, don't be sad. We can have another child." I suddenly raised my head and stared straight at him, pressing word by word, "and then let Lola be the mother of that child." Victor's face instantly paled. He instinctively began to explain. "No, Emily, no, that was just a joke." Through my blurred vision, I remained silent. Seeing that I didn't believe him, he fell to his knees with a thud in front of the tombstone, kowtowing repeatedly, his voice trembling as he said, "Emily, don't be like this. I truly know I was wrong. I swear I'll go back and deal with Lola." Those kowtows were clearly forceful. His forehead instantly turned red, with fine streaks of blood appearing. He thought I'd soften and stop him from hurting himself further, but I just watched coldly the entire time. His repentance today was deserved. In the end, it was Margaret who couldn't bear it and spoke up to stop him. That night, he took me to that gym. Only now do I fully understand that, on the surface, it's a fitness center, but in reality, it's one of Victor's hidden strongholds, ostensibly for exercise, but in truth, it's a front for shady dealings. No wonder Lola couldn't escape this place even once. Here, I became Lola's punching bag. This time, I was just the bodyguard standing behind, tying Lola up. Then came his pig-like squeals. "Shin-chan, I beg you, don't do this to me." Victor gave him a cold glance before viciously grabbing his throat and snarling, "Shut up, you hurt Emily." It's only fair he seeks justice now. His righteous tone made it seem as though he hadn't been involved in that day's events, but I wasn't surprised. This was the man's true nature, selfish and willing to sacrifice anyone for his own desires. When Lola saw he wouldn't relent, she turned to me with pitiful pleas. "Madam, I know I was wrong. Spare me this once." I didn't respond, only asking calmly, "When I begged you last time, you showed no mercy either." Her face turned deathly pale, and her pleas gradually faded. Shin-chan glanced around, signaling everyone to step forward, but I stopped them with a word. "Wait." He turned to look at me, confusion on his face. But his expression changed when he saw me putting on boxing gloves. Step by step, I advanced. Lola gritted her teeth, raining punches down on him, one after another. His initial screams turned into the silence of near death, blood gushing from the corner of his mouth like a corpse rotting on the ground. Victor watched my actions, hesitating several times to speak. I knew he was heartbroken, and behind my back, he would call the best doctors to treat him. He cried and apologized repeatedly, as if reverting to the devoted husband who once centered his world around me, but in private, he remained unchanged. His endless stream of supplements all ended up in Lola's room, and he recorded everything, sending the videos to me. Chapter 8. Don't think he loves you that much. A man in the underworld has no concept of loyalty in his dictionary. Every time he repents in front of you, he vents his fury on me tenfold. The next morning, at the breakfast table, I slid the pre-prepared divorce papers toward him. Victor's hands, holding the knife and fork, froze mid-air. His eyes were filled with rare panic, his lips trembling incoherently. "Wife, what is this?" I stared at him coldly, my gaze icy. "Victor, stop acting. You swear to the heavens on your knees while continuing to cheat. Aren't you tired of this game?" His eyes widened as he grabbed my hand, shaking his head frantically. "Wife, what do you mean? I don't understand." "It's fine if you don't understand. But I'm divorcing you." He stood up abruptly, his face as cold as ice. "I refuse. I've already admitted my mistakes and tried to make it up to you every day. What more do you want?" I sneered, enlarging the video Lola had sent me on my phone. "You're wasted as a gangster. A third-rate porn star suits you better." The screen showed him riding a woman, the bed creaking loudly with every thrust. With each moan, his face grew paler. "Honey, don't say anything. If I hear one more word from you, I'll start doubting it was you who signed the agreement." He shook his head resolutely, his tone leaving no room for argument. "I won't sign." I pulled out a dagger and pressed it against my neck. "Will you sign or not? If you don't, I'll die right here in front of you, just in time to reunite with our son." Hearing this, his eyes instantly reddened. With trembling hands, he picked up the pen and, after a long pause, whispered hoarsely, "Fine, I'll sign." Watching him write his name on the agreement, my heart, which had been suspended for days, finally settled. I couldn't be bothered to waste any more time acting with him. I slapped his hand away harshly and turned to leave, but he grabbed me. "Honey, where are you going?" His lips trembled, his gaze filled with anguish. I pried his fingers off one by one and smiled faintly. "Victor, it's over between us." His pupils shrank, his expression shifting silently, his face etched with deep grooves of torment. "Never. I'll never let you leave, unless I die." Hearing this, I met his gaze with casual indifference. "Don't worry, you'll get your wish." The next second, the door was violently kicked open, and a group of plainclothes police officers rushed in with guns drawn. Victor paled in shock and instinctively lunged toward me. I quickly pulled the dagger hidden in my pocket and, thud, the sound of a blade piercing flesh echoed in my ears. Victor staggered, then looked up at me in stunned disbelief. Bright red blood dripped from his lips, splattering onto the floor. He opened his mouth, but before he could utter a word, the officers behind him tackled him to the ground. I dropped the dagger and walked step by step to the table, picking up the divorce agreement. As I examined it, a cold satisfaction settled in. Finally, in his last moments, he had received the punishment he deserved. Victor never imagined that my last visit to the gym, ostensibly to confront Lola, was actually to plant a bug in the corner, thanks to that tiny device. Every move Victor's gang made there was clearly recorded. I knew that, given his status as a crime boss, I could never avenge our son in this lifetime, let alone escape him. The only way out was mutual destruction. But even in death, I would leave this world with my integrity intact. So, on the day the police raided their hideout, I asked him for a divorce. Soon after, the entire network of the Liu family was completely dismantled, both overt and covert, with every criminal stronghold wiped out without exception. Victor was arrested and, as rumors had it, sentenced to execution by firing squad. Meanwhile, Lola also ended up behind bars. He never received the matching heart he awaited and died within a month in prison. It turned out his identity was more than just that of a lover. He was also part of the gang involved in those filthy dealings. With the fall of the Liu family, their so-called friends swiftly turned their backs. Madame Liu suffered a stroke out of rage and was rushed to the hospital. On the day Victor was executed, I stood at the cemetery holding flowers. Rest in peace, my child. Well, that's all for today's story. If you like this video, please subscribe. We will continue to update more exciting stories and look forward to seeing you next time.